This story takes place in Peoria, Illinois, where an 8-year-old boy, Navin Jones, was rushed to hospital after he was found unresponsive and covered in bruises at his home on March 29, 2022, and was pronounced dead shortly after. This woman, Stephanie Jones, is his mother and the one who reported her son in his room, unresponsive and cold.
So long story short, last night, 8 p.m., kid was put to bed by mom. She's been up. No one's checked on him since she called at like 2, whenever this came in, 2, whatever. She called for him, didn't hear from him, went upstairs, didn't hear from him, went in his room, unresponsive, cold. She puts him in the bathtub because he's cold. Maybe that'll help. And then calls us.
The female officer here is explaining the statement she has received from the mother. From the mother's words, it sounds like an unforeseen tragedy, but hidden inside the home are vital clues about the horrors Navin faced on a daily basis. The young boy was found in a locked room covered in urine and feces, even on his bed, and had signs of physical abuse across his face, body, arms, and legs. He weighed just 30 pounds. For reference, according to studies, the average 8-year-old child is between 46 to 78 pounds. Navin was even far below the average baseline. He even had a note on his bedroom door which read, "Don't give Navin any food or drink. Do not let him out of the room. He has what he needs until I wake up."
p.m. when he went to bed. She's been up for a while. Dad left at 6 a.m., didn't check on him, took the other son to work with him. She went to go check on him a little bit ago before she called. Called for him, he didn't answer.
She's been gone all day?
No, she's been here, I'm sorry. She's been here.
But he's just been in his bedroom or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
She called for him, didn't hear anything, so she went to go check on him. Went in the room, he was unresponsive, cold to the touch, so because he was cold, she put him in the bathtub, tried to warm him up. Yeah. And the guy with the blue shirt on is co-worker who came with Dad. Their other son lives here as well, but Dad took the other son to work with him, and he is still at work, to my understanding. I haven't confirmed that. Jake and I had a standby with them and Dad's mom last year. Or Navin. And she went on vacation for a couple of weeks. Well,
So
she
now
left
he's
the kids
here.
with them. She came back to get the kids. It was some dispute of, we've had him, you haven't been here, blah, blah, blah.
One boy, 16
Jake has a report and they documented all of that. She's trying to tell me today that Grandma wanted nothing to do with the kids, but that's not the case that I know.
As the female officer explained Navin's father, Brandon Walker wasn't present and had taken his other son to work. The officers note internal conflict between the family for custody of the children. In conclusion, before being in the care of his mother and father, Navin was being looked after by his grandmother. During this time, Navin was, seemingly, living a normal life. The grandmother had been doing so since the boy was just 5 months old, but after briefly leaving Washington in July 2021, she returned to find Walker and Jones refusing to give the boy back to her. In an attempt to get the boy back under her watch, the grandmother contacted the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services, the Washington Police Department, and the Peoria Department. But sadly, she said that nothing changed despite her efforts. The medical staff were hopeful that the boy can be rescued and believed they had found a slight pulse. But this seemed to be false hope, as after checking the body, it was conclusively decided. Navin Walker, only 8 years old, was declared dead on scene. The whole ordeal was captured on body camera.
I'm sorry to have to tell you, but through all our efforts, there's nothing that we can do further.
Oh my God.
Do you guys have time?
Just call him now.
The cop just told me.
What the do you mean?
They cannot resuscitate him. That's what the I mean.
There's no fucking way! There's no fucking way!
1 out of 10 off.
I've been telling you and the DCFS bitch that he needed to be seen.
You guys are putting all your business out in front of everybody.
That his behavior was not normal.
The mother claims toward the end of the footage that she told DCFS, meaning the Department of Children and Family Services, that he needed to be seen and his behavior was not normal, seemingly trying to twist the narrative of the story and not only blame her negligence on the government services, but also her own child that was locked away and starved as a prisoner in his own house. It is true DCFS had been involved in Navin's life since he was an infant because he tested positive for opiates and was put under the agency's custody. This is how the grandmother, Laura Walker, gained permanent guardianship and managed to separate Navin from his birth parents. During the summer of 2021, Laura took a short trip to visit her ailing mother in Florida and left Navin with his parents for 10 days. When she returned home to Illinois, Walker said her son and Jones refused to return Navin. She subsequently contacted Peoria Police and DCFS, but the boy remained with his parents, despite the fact legally Laura had guardianship. All Laura could do was report and plead her case. While DCFS made several attempts to visit the children, it wasn't until February 2022 when DCFS investigator Kathy Harvey visited the home and observed Navin to be gaunt, sickly, and very thin, according to her testimony. She said she spent about 15 minutes with Navin and saw him eat popcorn and drink juice. Harvey testified she did not believe at the time she had the authority to help Navin get medical care. Instead, she pushed for Laura Walker to sign over temporary guardianship to her son. "I was afraid for his health," Laura Walker testified, explaining why she decided to turn over temporary guardianship to her son. "I was afraid there was something critically wrong. The caseworker insisted this was the only way to get medical attention, and I signed it and sent it." The caseworker said she received the guardianship paperwork from Laura Walker in the mail on March 29, 2022, the same day Navin passed away. DCFS spokeswoman Heather Tarxan declined to answer questions regarding Harvey's assessment and the proper protocol and simply made a statement. "Any time a life of a child is lost, it is a profound tragedy, and it is even more heartbreaking when that life is taken by the very people who are supposed to love and care for that child," Tarzan wrote in an email. In January, the agency's Office of Inspector General published a report that found there were 171 child deaths involving DCFS in year 2022, the same year Navin died. In 2023, a September state audit showed how the agency repeatedly failed to follow state laws aimed to protect children from abuse and neglect. DCFS Mark Smith announced in the fall of 2023 he would be leaving his position at the end of the year. Navin's cause of death was chronic malnutrition and physical abuse, and both his parents have been charged with his murder. Navin's mother, Stephanie Jones, pleaded guilty to first-degree murder in exchange for less prison time, while his father, Brandon Walker, was trial for the same charge, without a deal. During Walker's trial, jurors were shown pictures of the skeletal child, whose bones were visible through his skin. Navin's muscles had wasted away, his skin was discolored, his body fat was all gone, and his internal organs shrunk below their normal sizes and weights. During Walker's trial, jurors were shown pictures of the skeletal child, whose bones were visible through his skin. Navin's muscles had wasted away, his skin was discolored, his body fat was all gone, and his internal organs shrunk below their normal sizes and weights. His wrists showed signs of being bound, and his body was covered in bruises. It could no longer heal. Prosecutors said that the boy's room was disgusting and deplorable, with just a bed and one toy, while the rest of the home on Northgale Avenue was well furnished, with a fully stocked fridge. Navin's older brother, who was 12 at the time of his death, also had a nicely furnished room with toys and video games, in a stark contrast to his younger sibling. Walker, when testifying, said he last saw Navin 2 days before he died. They watched a movie together, and Walker said he observed his son walk up 2 flights of stairs when he went to bed, contradicting medical experts' testimony that it was unlikely Navin could have much mobility in his final days due to his poor condition. The father said he rarely went to his son's rooms and was not often there to feed them meals, citing his long work hours. Walker also testified he, not Navin's mother, was in contact with DCFS. He said he was seeking guardianship in order to obtain medical care for Navin, and he was frustrated at how long it was taking to complete. Peoria County Assistant State's Attorney argued that Walker, as his father, had a duty to protect Navin. She also pointed to evidence on how Walker brought the older son to the emergency room and doctor's appointments, even though he also didn't have guardianship of the older boy. The state showed how there were no doorknobs on Navin's door. Instead, rope was used to close the doors, prosecutors said. Medical experts testified there were ligature marks on his wrists, indicating he was tied up. Every day he came home and saw Navin Jones wasting away before his eyes. He aided and abetted Stephanie Jones's starvation of this child. Every day he decided to not take Navin to the ER because he didn't want DCFS to get involved. He aided and abetted Stephanie Jones. Father of 8-year-old Navin Jones was sentenced to life in prison for his son's murder. Brandon Walker, age 42, received life in prison after a Peoria County jury found him guilty of murdering Navin in a brutal and heinous manner, indicative of wanton cruelty. The jury, made up of 8 men and 4 women, took about 45 minutes to deliberate the verdict. As for Navin's mother, Stephanie, it has been a long wait for justice. Unlike Walker, Stephanie Jones had a plea deal with the prosecution, and her trial has been a long time coming, with those uncertain if justice would be served. Finally, on the date, 25 April 2024, Stephanie Jones was handed down a 100-year prison sentence. She was accused of being a bald-faced liar, and for starving her son to death, for beating him, and then blaming others for it. The mother of Navin Jones will likely spend the rest of her life in prison. This brings an end to the horror story of Navin Jones. While he may be gone, he is not forgotten. Even though it doesn't mean much after everything he experienced, his cruel parents have finally both been held accountable with the full extent of the law, and those involved can move on with their lives. Unfortunately, the child care system that failed Navin is still in place, and children still fall through the cracks, and this case brings it to light even further. Our deepest sympathies go out to the family of those involved in this tragedy. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoy our content. Goodbye, and stay safe.